welcome to another edition of Ask Ron. This is the Olympia special edition. Olympia is next week. I'm going to talk about it now. Got some good questions. And first batch come from my man Glenn Hill 68 over in the UK. First question. With the Olympia fast approaching, if you were in charge of the show, what changes would you make and why? First off, I have to say Robin Chang does an incredible job promoting this event. I can't even imagine the amount of planning and all the details and people, manpower, all the arrangements that have to go into this huge weekend of all these different events and the expo. And props to you, Robin. It's got to be so much work. I know he has a great team helping him, but still, I'm sure it's a whole year-long process preparing for this and planning so everything goes off smoothly, and it does. So I have to say that right up front. One thing I would definitely want to see changed if I was, calling the shots, would be to break up the prize money, make it a little bit more fair, more even. The men's open gets the brunt of the prize money. Every time I see that the prize money has been increased, I'm like, okay, that's great. It's over $1 million in total for all the divisions, but more than half of that goes to open men, the Mr. Olympia. The argument is that's who people come to see, and I agree. I agree that the majority of people who are coming from all over the world and all over the USA to converge on Las Vegas next weekend, paying to stay at the hotels, paying for these big VIP ticket packages and whatnot. Yeah, I'm sure a huge percentage of those people come to see open men. They want to see Phil and Rami and Rolly and Nathan and Bonac and Dexter. That's who they want to see. But I'm convinced that the 212 also has a huge following. Classic also has a huge following. And I think a lot of people are coming to see those. Now, they might not be coming specifically just to see those divisions, the 212 and the Classic. And yes, there are many other divisions. Okay, I'm well aware there's men's physique, there's women's physique, there's women's fitness, there's women's bikini. Am I missing anything? There's a lot of divisions. But the prize money is just not, it's not as evenly distributed as I feel it could be to represent. And I know it's not about who works. Everybody works hard. I get that. Everybody works hard. But if you're looking at last year, first place, Phil Heath, $400,000. That's awesome. That money went up a few years ago. Very recently, it went up from like 120 or something to 400 in 1 year for the first place winner. It made a huge jump. And the announcement came shortly after it was learned that Kai would not be competing that year, which was a last-minute thing, where everyone was like waiting, is he gonna? And then Kai made his video crying and saying they won't let me compete, and it was a whole brouhaha. There's a word for you guys, brouhaha. But so Phil gets $400,000 for winning. That's great. That's a good payout. I mean, it's considering we're not Major League Baseball or football or NBA. It's not that kind of money, but it's still, that's a nice paycheck. Then you get down to see what does Flex Lewis get. He gets $40,000. He gets 1/10 the amount of money for winning the 212 Olympia. And I do believe it's called the 212 Olympia now, not the 212 Mr. Olympia, which I get that. We don't want to confuse anything with the Mr. Olympia. But I think I pray the Showdown thing is, the title is gone. It's no longer called the 212 Showdown. It's an Olympia. I've always wanted them to have the Olympia title affixed to the 212 championship. So he gets 1/10. 40,000 is 1/10 of 400,000. I don't know if 10 times more people are there buying tickets to see Phil Heath and the gang in the Open as there are for the 212. I think the 212 is very popular. What do I know? Then you get down to the Classic. Breon Ansley last year got $20,000 for winning that, for being the best classic physique bodybuilder in the world. So that is 1/20th. That's 5% of what Phil gets for winning the Mr. Olympia last year, anyway. I think they are all going up a little bit this year, a little bit, not much. So yeah, I would change that. And overall, if this was some real fantasy scenario where I could make anything happen, I'm like the wizard. I would change things back kind of to the way they were. When I first started covering the sport and going to these shows, my first Mr. Olympia, I worked as a media covering the TV coverage for ESPN was 1991, 27 years ago in Orlando, Florida. It was Lee Haney's last Olympia win and Dorian's first time at the Olympia. That was the first Olympia I went to. It was pretty awesome. I would keep it the way it was, sort of. We had men's bodybuilding and women's bodybuilding. And back then they were held as different events. Ms. Olympia was in a different city and a different weekend than the Mr. Olympia. And it was that way for many years until they consolidated everything more recently. So I would bring back the Ms. Olympia. Why can't we have women's bodybuilding anymore? Yeah, they went too far. They got too extreme. So let's have men's bodybuilding, which is the way that obviously we're not going to get rid of the Mr. Olympia, which is the biggest, freakiest, most incredible physiques on the planet with no weight limits. And for the people that want to see really tiny waistlines and more aesthetics and great presentation, we could keep classic. So you'll have Mr. Olympia and you'll have classic physique Olympia for those two options, more extreme and a less extreme. And then for women, you could have women's bodybuilding, the Ms. Olympia, and you could have the women's physique Olympia, which would be smaller, slightly softer version, because now we see these women's physique competitors coming in just as shredded as the women's bodybuilders in the Olympia ever were. We see the striated glutes and the carved out cheeks, and the condition is right back to where it was when they were women bodybuilders. They're just not quite as big. So I don't think it's out of the question. I think something like that could survive. It's just those four divisions at the Olympia. I'm going to get a lot of flack because what about figure? What about men's physique? Well, men's physique, they don't pose. They're in board shorts. Build up your legs if you don't have the legs and become a classic physique competitor. Women's figure, women's fitness. Fitness, I have the utmost respect for those women, absolutely. They're very entertaining to watch. It's kind of weird to me to see that as part of a physique competition. It kind of harkens back to the old days. Before Joe Weider and Ben Weider, I should say before Ben Weider created the IFBB, and even through the earliest years of it, the AAU was the top organization. And they would not let you compete in just bodybuilding. If you wanted to be their bodybuilding champion, even the Mr. America, you still had to participate that same day in something else, usually weightlifting or gymnastics. Or you had to show one of those abilities. So you had to show that you could be you were a world-class weightlifter or gymnast. John Grimmick, who was a great Mr. America back in the old days, he used to do a gymnastics routine, a floor routine, earlier in the evening or something, and then they would let him be the bodybuilder. And Ben Weider was the first one that came along and said, you know what? Physique competition, it's an athletic endeavor and pursuit in its own right. Let's have it as a standalone event. You guys, you don't have to do any weightlifting that day. You don't have to show me you're a gymnast. IFBB is going to be for people that want to be bodybuilders and showcase their physiques, and that's what it became. So women's fitness with the routines and everything, to me, it doesn't really belong. That's just me. This is my opinion. It's Ask Ron. You can tell Ron to F off if you want. It's fine. Figure, bikini. I don't know. If you figure, you could always get a little bit bigger and do women's physique. Again, there's no posing. They just do this in quarter turns. Bikini, I catch a lot of flack because I'm very critical of bikini because, especially when you get to the Olympia level, these are supposed to be physiques that are so outstanding, so different from what you would see walking around or even at your local gym. And to me, I see, don't get me wrong, these are beautiful. They're gorgeous women. Phenomenal slamming bodies. Phenomenal. But I see women like that at the beach. I see them at the gym. I see women that wouldn't be out of place on a pro stage is what I'm saying. And these are women that have never competed, have no aspirations to compete. They're just beautiful women. They work out. They have, nice fake boobs, nice perky bubble butts, a little bit of abs, a little bit of muscle tone. That's a bikini competitor. So if it was me that created the divisions, I would just go back to men's and women's bodybuilding. I would keep classic physique, and I would keep women's physique. Sorry, everybody else, and you can blast me all you want. Ron Harris, what an asshole. Yeah, I'm grouchy. I'm a grouchy old man. Okay, that's enough of that. So I would break up the prize money. That would be my main thing. Distribute it a little bit more evenly. I know it sucks because that would mean a little less for the open guys, right? I mean, Rami got $150,000 last year for taking second place. Bonac got $100,000 for third place. So Bonac in third place still made more than twice as much money as Flex Lewis did, winning his sixth 212 Olympia title in a row. You know, Bonac got 5 times more money than Breon did for being the best classic physique athlete in the world. I would break that up somehow. I know it's easy for me to say because I don't have to come up with the prize money and I don't have to bug the sponsors and try to get more money, but that's what I would change. If it was possible, I would try to see that happen. Which competitors are you looking forward to seeing? Wow. Can I say all of them? Is that, because I mean, we got a great show this year. I have to start off by saying Sergio Oliva Jr. because I did a preview with Mike Cox a week ago. Because I was going off a list of people that were already qualified for the show on the MrOlympia.com website, I just jotted down a bunch of names and I forgot about Sergio. So my bad, Sergio Jr. I'm very much looking forward to seeing him, of course, on the Olympia stage. Even though I've seen him twice this year already. I saw him at Chicago and Tampa. He looked great. And I'm sure he's going to look even better for the Olympia because it's the Olympia stage. I know he wants to come in a little bigger and fuller. Hopefully he keeps that condition and does the same. Phil, I know Phil's going to be at his best. Phil got a lot of heat last year for coming in with a bloated stomach, which was really a direct result of a double hernia. So he's going to come in much better condition. I believe his waist is going to be smaller this year than we've seen it in years. I believe he's going to come in around like 240, 245 at the most, instead of 250 to 255 range, which is what I believe he was last year. Rami, monster, freak. Bonac, incredible, gnarly, old man, muscle, dense. Reminds me a lot of Kai. Dexter, amazing, former Olympia champion, winningest pro bodybuilder of all time. Always brings incredible package. Sean Roden, phenomenal physique, beautiful shape on him. Rolly looked awesome when he won Arnold Australia earlier this season. Tighter and leaner is a better look for Rolly, and I think he's figured that out. He won't try to come in as big and full, which kind of has like a bloated look for him. Loses some detail when he does that. Nathan Dasha, this guy's motivation is on fire. He's been talking a lot of shit, so he's got to back it up. He's fired up. We're fired up to see him. Brandon Curry looking like a monster in these shots we're seeing from Kuwait. Charles Griffin, newer guy, getting bigger and better all the time. Cedric, when he puts it together and comes in shape, it's a sight to see. Amazing physique. I love Cedric's physique. Mike Lockett was in spectacular condition in Chicago. Look forward to seeing him again. Juan Morel, killer condition in Toronto. Crazy upper body, crazy hamstrings. Looking forward to seeing Juan up there again. Ian Valliere from Canada. He's been getting better and better all season at every show. He finally qualified for the Olympia. He's going to be something to see. Kuklo, too. Kuklo is always fun to watch. Kuklo will bring it. That's just the open. I'm looking forward to in the 212. Flex, of course. Flex is going out. This is his last Olympia. He said it. So he wants to go out with his 7th win in a row at his best ever. And, of course, he's going to. He's Flex Lewis. Barring some crazy virus or something at the end or an injury. We're going to see something excellent from Flex. Jose is also going to be Jose's retiring for good after the Olympia. He's doing a couple post-Olympia shows, and that's it. He's all done. So looking very much forward to seeing Jose. I posted a picture up, new pic of Jose on the MD No Bull forum. It's also on my Facebook and my Instagram, and yeah, he's looking crazy. If you like that veiny, gnarly, freaky look, he's like the poster boy for it now. Veins on top of veins on top of veins. Ahmad Ashkenani, some pictures of him leaking out of Kuwait. He's looking to be crazy looking again. Just because it's a sentimental thing, I'd like to see Jose slide in front of him at this Olympia. I'd actually be very happy if Jose won. I'd love to see him get one before he goes. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Flex is tough, and Flex is determined to win this, as I'm sure you guys realize. David Henry, still competing. Sorry I started spreading that false rumor about Dave that he was retiring. He's not retiring. He still looks incredible. In his 40s, but still has that pop, fresh look to his muscles. Everything's still round and bubbly and full. Derek Lunsford, the kid from Indiana, 5th place last year in his debut. First year as a pro. Just turned pro in July, at the end of July last year, and jumped right in. He's looking bigger and better. Geez, Charles Tank Dixon, always a sight to see. So much dense, thick muscle. Brings it in condition. Sean Clarita, the giant killer. Samuel Haddad, Ricardo Correa, Dwayne Kwamina, who I just said on Ron Line, Kamal El-Garni, who won the Arnold earlier this year, another great physique. Zane Watson out of Canada, he's training hard, can look good. Nicholas Valude, who I just saw win in Tampa, looks great. Hadi, I don't think Hadi Chapin's getting in the U.S. I wish he would, though. It'd make for a better show. You know, he's tough. Classic, it's going to be an awesome show. Breon defending his title. He's going to look great. Bumstead coming back, trying to win. George Peterson's looking great. Arash, Danny Hester, Terrence Ruffin, Wesley Vissers, Regan Grimes, David Hoffman, Henri Pierano, Steve Lorius, and more. Great show this year. I'm very glad I'm going. Giles and I will be covering it along with the rest of the team. Jordan on video and so forth. It's going to be a great weekend. I'm looking very much forward to it. Looking forward to seeing all those guys. You know, it's never about one competitor for me. I like to see a battle. I like to see everyone at the top of their game. That's when the shows are fun to watch, when you're on the edge of your seats. Like, wow, that's when you really don't envy the judges. Like, what are these poor judges going to do? These guys all look incredible. You know, hats off to them. And the judges have their work cut out for them. It's going to be a tough go for them. Would you like to see all the top guys go on a tour after the show like they did in the 90s so fans in other countries can see them? Sure. Those are great ideas, those tours. It also gave these guys a chance to pick up a lot more money in a short amount of time. They would hit anywhere from 4 to 7 or 8 shows sometimes. Sometimes there would be a show on Saturday, another one on Sunday in 2 different countries where they'd have to hustle to the next country. And every weekend there'd be 2 shows, and this would go on for like a month, and they'd be like, yeah, 8 more shows. And guys would go back and forth. Sometimes, like I remember the tour after the '88 Olympia in Los Angeles, where, you know, Lee Haney didn't go, so they were back and forth battles on that tour between Rich Gaspari and Lee Labrada. Rich would win one show, Labrada would beat him at the next, and they were just going back and forth at each other. And they were both, you know, fierce competitors, both in great condition. I think those tours were exciting. And, you know, we could actually do a much better job nowadays keeping track of what's going on. Back in the old days, you know, the coverage of the tours didn't come out for like 6 weeks in the magazines. If you wanted to know who won, you could call around to the big gyms and see if anybody knew at the front desk. That's what we had to do back in the old days. But now, obviously, everything would be streamed, or somebody would be taking pictures. Somebody would be covering them in every country. So we'd see what was going on. Yeah, I'd like to see those come back. What was the other one? Over the 52 Olympias. There's a good one from Glenn. Of all the Olympia shows we've had, so there's been 52 so far, if you could have 10 athletes competing against each other, who would they be? So this is my dream or my fantasy Olympia. These are the 10 competitors I would have on that stage, all at the top of their game. And, you know, I realize these are different eras, so you could say, oh, so-and-so didn't, his legs weren't, we'll just leave that out of the discussion, okay? I'm not talking about how they would place. Who would I like to see? I would like to see Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sergio Oliva, Lee Haney, Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman, Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, Kai Green, Phil Heath, and Dexter Jackson. That would be an awesome lineup of 10 guys in the Mr. Olympia. All Olympia champions except for Kevin and I neglected Sean. I probably should have had Sean in there, but I only had 10. I could have swapped out Sean with Dexter, but Sean would be if I could pick 11, I'd throw Sean up there too. But yeah, that's a great group right there. That's a solid group. Okay, this next one comes from Alito. Ron, do you think the Open Olympia needs a change to remain interesting for the bodybuilding world outside the U.S.? If we have only U.S. winners, maybe it's become boring. Since the Shadow 20 years ago, only Americans won the Open show. I don't know. I don't think the fans really lose interest. That's like saying, did the Americans lose interest for 6 years when Dorian was Mr. Olympia? Not at all. I mean, I think Dorian had plenty of fans here. I was a Dorian fan. Everybody I knew was a Dorian fan. Didn't matter that he was in England and he wasn't American. I don't personally care where these guys come from. It makes no difference to me. You still have some amazing athletes from out of the country. You got Rami, Bonac, Rowley, Nathan, Flex Lewis, Ahmad. Half the field or more is from outside the U.S. So I don't think it matters that the Olympia champion, and the best man's supposed to win. It's not supposed to be, well, we really need a European champion because these people in Europe are starting to get pissed off that Phil Heath, an American, has been winning. I don't think the fans are like that. I mean, bodybuilding sort of transcends these boundaries of nationality and race and religion and all that, because we just care about the physique we're looking at. I don't even personally care about the character of the person per se. Like I've said this before, there's some people I've admired their physiques greatly that I knew that they weren't good people. They were, maybe they abandoned a family and left them to starve, or killed someone, or whatever. I'm talking, when I look at physiques, I'm just looking at physique. I don't put the person's personality into the equation because that's not my job. And I don't think a lot of fans are overly concerned with what these guys do off stage necessarily, because they're fans of the physique. So I don't think it matters that we have an American champion in Phil Heath that's been champion for 7 years running, and before that it was Jay Cutler and Dexter for 1 year, and then we had obviously the Ronnie years. A lot of Americans did very well, sure, but they were the best physiques on the planet. They just happened to be. And America's a big country, USA. We have 300 million people, over 300 million people, tons of bodybuilders, big gene pool to choose from. So you're going to have a lot of great bodybuilders coming out of somewhere like that. Okay, you have Rami, blah, blah. Okay, so that is the end of the bodybuilding discussion, Mr. Olympia discussion. This next part I'm going to segue into is for horror fans, specifically of the Halloween series. So I hate to tell anyone to stop watching, but I don't want you coming back and getting mad at me saying, you mother effer, you made us sit through 10 minutes or whatever of talking about the Halloween series. Michael Edwards. First question, have you seen the new Halloween trailer? What do I think of that? I did. I watched it. The strange thing to me is that the whole premise of this movie is that the only movie that in the reality or universe of this remake or sequel, it's a sequel, is that nothing except the first Halloween movie happened. They say in the trailer that Michael was apprehended the night of the murders, and he's been put back in a mental institution because in the first movie, the 1978 original Halloween movie, he had escaped from a mental institution because he had murdered his sister when he was only like 8 years old. And at 21 years old, he breaks out and starts, 18, 15. I'm bad at math. Anyway, he breaks out in his early 20s and goes back to his hometown on a killing spree. So at the end of that movie, he was shot 6 times, fell out a window. Dr. Loomis, Donald Pleasance, looks out the window and there's no body anymore. The body's gone. If you're familiar with the series, in Halloween 2, it picks up right at that moment, and most of it takes place in a hospital where he's going to get his sister, Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, who's been stabbed and she's wounded. He's going back there to finish her off, and along the way he murders a bunch of other people. Of course, it's a slasher movie. So in this sequel that's coming out this year, that never happened. He went right back. Somehow they caught him. I don't know how it's never shown, or maybe they'll show it. I don't know. He was apprehended and he's been away. This would also mean that 40 years have gone by. So if he was 21 in 1978, now he would be 63. And in the trailer, the way they show him moving and so forth, it doesn't look like the way a 63-year-old man would move or stand or walk. He seems to be getting around pretty well, and more like a guy in his 20s or 30s. But that's my first problem with it. They also said in this trailer that Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, was not his sister. That was something people made up, which actually makes more sense because in the original Halloween movie, in the opening sequence where the child version of Michael Myers murders his older sister. There's never any mention of a younger sister or a baby. The parents went out to a Halloween party or something, and the sister was supposed to babysit Michael. I don't know. It was Michael and an older sister. There was never mention of a baby. Where the hell was this baby? Did they left the baby with someone else? I mean, it didn't make sense. These Halloween movies, because he asked me, his other says, what are your favorite Halloween movies in the series? I only really like the first two. The thing about these Halloween movies is after the first two, there's no continuity. Okay, he burnt at the end of the second movie, which is in the hospital. He's trying to kill Laurie. He gets his eyes shot, both his eyes shot out by Loomis. And then Loomis, they're alone in a room, in like an operating room or something with a bunch of oxygen tanks. Loomis shoots the tanks, explodes. Michael walks out of the fire at the end, collapses, he burns to death. That's how Halloween 2 ends. He's dead. They bring him back in more movies, inexplicably, of course. You know, it's like the crappy Friday the 13th movies are garbage as far as I'm concerned, because no matter what they did to him, he always came back. It's like Deadpool. He just needed like one cell to regenerate. It was ridiculous. The only other movie of that whole series, and geez, there was a lot of Halloween. So there was the first two movies, Halloween 1 in 78, Halloween 2 in 81, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, 82, which had nothing to do with Michael Myers or anything. They really should have just called it Season of the Witch, because it had nothing to do with any of the previous movies or the movies that followed. Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers, sucked. 5, Revenge of Michael Myers, that was 88. 89 was Revenge of Michael Myers, sucked. 95, Curse of Michael Myers, sucked. Halloween H2O, 20 years later, not bad. LL Cool J was in it. Jamie Lee Curtis was a star. At the end of that movie, she chops his head off in the back of an ambulance because, you know, he's always coming back to life and she wanted to make sure he was dead. So she beheaded him. Then they bring him back in Resurrection, Halloween Resurrection 2002, claiming Michael had swapped clothes with one of the ambulance drivers, and that's who got his head cut off by Jamie Lee Curtis. It wasn't really Michael. Ridiculous. There were also two remakes or reimaginings that Rob Zombie made. Halloween in 2007 and Halloween 2, I think, was just a couple of years later. Interesting takes on the movie. Rob Zombie, I like his style. It's very different. It's very splashy. House of a Thousand Corpses is one of my favorite horror movies. It's just so over the top and ridiculous and campy and bizarre. And he sort of infused that whole feeling into those Halloween movies. You know, but to me, the first two are the classics. The first one is the best, as is usually the case. You know, it was made on a fairly low budget by John Carpenter. There had never been anything like it. It spawned the slasher movies. Psycho wasn't really a slasher movie. You know, I mean, in the years following Halloween, there were probably 200 or 300 other copycat movies with a masked killer or something along those lines, terrorizing teenagers. You know, even Friday the 13th, to an extent, that series was a borrowed or ripped off Halloween. I'm still going to see this new one. It looks like pretty decent. Looks like they put some thought into it. I'm sure I'm going to be a little disappointed because anytime I see a sequel or a remake, I'm typically disappointed because I'm a snob. I was a film major. I have very high standards for movies. And horror movies, I have even higher standards for. So I end up sitting through a ratio of about 50 shit horror movies to see one good horror movie. That's about how often I'm really happy and pleased and satisfied with a horror movie. So I'm still going to see this, and I'm hoping for the best. The Halloween series, like I said, the first two I thought were done very well. Great pacing. Acting was pretty decent even, you know, compared to the later versions. The ones I said were shit, just terrible acting, terrible plots, just didn't need to be made. They were just cashing in on the franchise name. But I'll see it. So that's been this Olympia special edition of Ask Ron. I'm sure I'll be talking a lot more about the Olympia as we get closer. I'll be doing more. I'm doing a preview with Giles next week. And geez, this is Friday. At this time next week, I'll be in Vegas. I'll be there next Thursday. So we're going to be we're going to hit the ground running, Giles and I, getting as much content, as much interviews, everything, as much coverage as we can for you guys. Paparazzi pictures, anything we can get, we're going to get for you, because that's why we're there. We're there to create content. We're not there to have fun. Maybe I'll have a little fun on Sunday. I don't know. So thank you for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the Muscular Development channel. And keep the questions coming, everybody. Talk to you next time.